Surfactants in home care. Now, I know when I say that, you've got this image in your mind of a small, stuffy conference room with a purchasing agent sat across the table from you from Unilever, peering over the top of their glasses saying, yeah, we buy a lot of those surfactants and we make a lot also, so don't expect to make much margin here. And you know what? For a chunk of the industry, that's a valid image. That's a valid perception. Although, you know, they're firm but fair, more on the firm side. But there is a lot going on in this sector. A lot of developments, a lot of innovation, and some interesting opportunities for those that are prepared to put in the work. It's a huge market. I estimate there's about 2.5 million tons of total surfactant going into home care consumer products in North America. So let's take a look at some data. These are my estimates. I've got a column with the estimated product volumes for the consumer products themselves expressed in tons, and I've backed out an estimate of the surfactant going into those products. And you can see, obviously, as we know, laundry is a huge area across liquid, powder, pods, and capsules, and including in there fabric softeners. Dishwashing is big, and you've got then a range of additional household cleaners, all-purpose cleaners, disinfectant sprays, tub and tile in the bathroom, glass and window cleaners, floor cleaners, etc., etc., adding up to, as I said, around a 2.5 million ton, the largest single product category, consumer product category for surfactant use. So what are the trends that affect surfactant suppliers into this segment? There's a lot, and some of them you're probably already familiar with. So let's take a look. Sustainability, obviously a big deal. Concentration all the way down to waterless products. Mildness, hypoallergenicity, performance efficiency. Cold water wash is big. Rapid cycle wash is also big. Getting those clothes in and out of there in 15 minutes or less, big performance challenge. Supply chain diversification and ongoing well-established interest in finding alternatives to petroleum and palm derivatives. There's a big push towards transparency. I'm seeing more and more the full ingredient listing on the back of the detergent bottle, as well as what we're used to seeing on the personal care products. Regulations, of course, are hitting this area. The dioxane regulations for both the finished products in the US and potentially for the individual surfactants in the EU. And of course, EUDR affects palm derivatives across the board. Fragrances are a big deal in this sector. Fragrance compatibility is key for all the other ingredients. Many of these brands are fragrance-led in terms of their appeal to the consumer. Convenience for the consumer, big focus on power brands at the big companies. They're trying to narrow down their portfolio of brands and really put the marketing push behind a core few. Having said that, there are a number of emerging so-called indie brands in this sector, which we're going to talk about in a little while. The surfactants that are used in home care are those that we all already know and love. Let's take a look. Good old LAS, still the leading surfactant in the world, and certainly the leading surfactant in the home care sector. Alcohol sulfates and alcohol ether sulfates, both palm and petroleum-based, especially petroleum-based in the US market. Alcohol ethoxylates, also palm and petroleum-based. Among the up-and-comers, I would point to APGs, alkyl polyglucosides. They've been around for a while, but they're seeing renewed interest. Alpha olefin sulfonates, AOS, ditto, been around for a while, seeing renewed interest. Both of those interesting for regulatory reasons. You have the potential there to avoid the dioxane concern. You get some biorenewability with APGs, potentially also with AOS if some recent innovations really make it. And of course, biosurfactants and bio-based surfactants, especially with the rollout of the Unilever products which tout Rhamno Clean on the package. These are Unilever dishwash products under the Sunlight and Quicks brands, and that's part of a partnership there with Evonik. So some interesting up-and-comer surfactants in this very large home care category. At the consumer product end of the business, it's very concentrated. The top 4 or 5 companies control a majority of the market. P&G, Unilever, Henkel, Church & Dwight, Cow. But in addition, there are a lot of indie brands. I've noted some on this next slide. It's a bit of an eye chart, so I suggest you just freeze the video and look it over at your leisure, but I'll pick up on some of the names. 7th generation, owned by Unilever, but behaves somewhat independently. SC Johnson's got a slate of products there under Ecover, Method, and Mrs. Meyer's brands. You've got much smaller brands like Blueland, True Earth, Rebel Green, etc., etc. Fabuloso is a Colgate brand. Lysol, of course, part of Reckitt Benckiser, many other smaller brand products here in this list. And this is just a very small, particularly unscientific selection, but gives you the idea that in addition to the big guys, there are plenty of small guys you can talk to secure some business position in this segment. So in conclusion, if you want to sell surfactants into home care, and I suggest you take a look at it because it is a big market, you should do the following 4 things. First, check if you address one or more of the trends that we talked about on the prior slide. You should talk to the majors, talk to the big guys as well as the indie brands. I think you should be encouraged by the Unilever Evonik RhamnoClean example. And take heart from that. There is opportunity in the big brands with bio-based and biosurfactants. And when you show up with data, show up with a convincing narrative, particularly about your supply chain, and be ready to follow up with samples. Good luck. If you found this interesting, please let me know, like, subscribe, and as always, thanks again for listening.